Howard here with a lesson on slide guitar. I've actually had many people ask me if I would put together a lesson on slide guitar, or at least my approach to it, because to be honest, I don't think of myself as a traditional slide player. I don't change the action on my guitar or anything like that. I use the slide on my pinky a lot, sometimes on my ring finger, but on my pinky a lot, which I'll speak about today and talk about a few different things, okay? So first off the bat, like I said, I don't set up any of my guitars for slide. The action isn't set high. I actually come more from the, I guess, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, even George Harrison school of music when it comes to slide. They just grab the guitar and go, you know. And I do employ open tuning sometimes, but I'm just going to be talking about standard tuning today because that's what a lot of people have actually asked me about, okay? Now, having said that, you can catch a lot of tutorials on my channel for slide guitar, doing tunes like In My Time of Dying by Zeppelin, Motherless Children by Eric Clapton, and those all employ open tuning. So I do use open A, open G, and open E for slide, but again, we're just focusing on standard setup, standard tuning, and some of the great stuff you can do with it. So first of all, let's talk about the fingers. I'm going to be focused on the pinky today, but you'll see lessons online from me where I'm using a glass Dunlop slide because the whole song is played on slide, or it's an extended solo or something like that, okay? So in any event, once again, let's get into it. So types of slides. The slide that I have on my finger right now is by a company called Rock Slide. And this is a brass slide, one of my favorites actually. And you can check out their stuff by going to therockslide.com. This is a medium slide, I guess, for your pinky. And one of the things I love about their slides, this isn't an endorsement, by the way. They don't pay me. It's got this little bevel here, right? Which is really nice because when you put it on your finger, you can see how it fits nicely right there, okay? And one of the other things that I like about it is it has this little wedge in it. I don't know if you can see that right there. So you can put your ring finger in it against it, and it really helps hold the slide in place. And that way, I believe it really helps your intonation. And another personal favorite that I really like from them, this is a recent acquisition of mine. It's the same idea. It's a slide for the pinky, but you can see it's a glass slide, amber, and it's very thick. It's got a very thick rim on it, and but it's the same slide. You can see it's got the little bevel there and the little wedgie there to put your finger in, and it's a little bit different tone. So it just depends on what you're going for and what you like to hear, okay? So these are the slides that I favor. I do like the Dunlops. I wear one on my ring finger occasionally. I shattered it on the studio floor last week, so it is actually no more. Now again, all of the things I'm sharing with you in this video is just my personal approach to slide guitar. There's a lot of different approaches and a lot of traditional ways of doing it, but I just kind of do it my way, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. So the first three things I want to share with you is fret position, which is for good intonation, muting, and vibrato, okay? All of those are really, really important. So the easiest way to look at slide is, for instance, if I want to play a C note on the G string at the 5th fret with conventional fingering, I can put my finger anywhere inside that fret box, so to speak, and the intonation will not change. The frets themselves keep it solid, but if you do that with a slide, microtonal changes start to happen. So you want to think of slide as placing the slide right over the fret itself. So if I wanted to play that note on the G string at the 5th fret with the slide, you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you want to be right over that fret. If you fall short of it, you're flat, of course. And one of the coolest things about slide is that you can get a very vocal type vibrato. When we do a normal vibrato on guitar, all we're actually doing is pulling the note sharp and then letting it come back to pitch. But with slide, you can go both above the pitch and below it, which gives you that real singing vocal type quality like a singer. That's really nice, and that's one of the most beautiful qualities of slide that I love so much. Now, when it comes to the basic technique of slide itself, you want to keep the slide flat and rested on the strings. You don't ever push the strings down to where they meet the fretboard. Otherwise, you'll hear that sound. So you're just resting the slide on the string or strings themselves. And you want to keep the slide flat, even, and as straight as possible. Not totally and entirely, but most of the time. Because if you're playing like a 2 or 3 string chord, 2 string would be double stop, of course, but let's say a 3 string chord, like I said, if you tip that slide, it's going to affect the chord. So let's say I'm going to play the D, G, and B strings at the 9th fret. It's really important that the slide is straight. Otherwise, the chord will start to sound a little bit off. And you don't want that, of course. Very important to keep the slide straight. So you want to practice those particular things. Targeting the fret itself, the right pressure on the slide, not too much, but enough to really make the strings sing out. And also keeping the slide straight for the most part. I'm not going to say that's a dyed-in-the-wool rule, but for the most part, especially when you're playing those 2-string and 3-string things on the guitar. The other thing to mention, and vitally important, is muting. Because the slide can be incredibly noisy, right? The guitar, especially the electric guitar with some gain or distortion on it like I have going right now, can be very noisy. And the slide can create a lot of noise, so you've got to apply some muting to really keep all of that down to a minimum. And a lot of traditional slide players mute by just laying these fingers flat in front of the slide or behind it, however you choose to look at it. I don't do that. That's never really worked out for me. So I do most of my muting in the right hand, and there's a couple of different approaches. Obviously, resting your palm or the side of your hand across the bridge to keep other strings quiet is very useful. That can help a lot in and of itself. But when it comes to actual articulation, there's a couple of different approaches I take. For instance, if I want to move from one string to the next and I don't want them to bleed together, I'll actually use the pick to keep the string quiet as I move to the next string. Sort of like Jimmy Page's solo in What Is and What Should Never Be. So for instance, so what I did there is I'm actually using the pick to stop the string, to mute it and keep it quiet. And how I'm doing that is, and you can see that I'm resting the pick on the string. So that's just a lot of muting with the pick, as I say, and you can get pretty handy with that. You can play some pretty quick lines, getting used to muting very quickly. And you can play all kinds of things like that. And then the other muting technique that I use is actually muting with a finger. And I've seen George Harrison do this, where he actually uses a finger of his right hand to stop the string that he's coming from. So I don't know if you could see that, but what I did was, there's a pick mute, and then as I make my way to the G string, I'm stopping the B string by placing my middle finger on it. And then again, so right there I moved from the G string to the D string. And there's the finger coming down to mute that string. I don't know if that's considered unconventional to apply those kind of muting techniques, but like I say, I really come from the Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page school of slide playing, and I also love Dwayne Allman, and Billy Gibbons is pretty awesome as well. But that's my approach to muting. So let's get back to vibrato for just a second, because it's such an important part of slide playing. Now with vibrato on slide, you can really go crazy. You can have pretty intense vibratos. So that's really just wickedly whipping the slide left to right to get that kind of real greasy blues slide. And that's a cool sound, of course, but you can also use more subtle vibrato. And that can just sound really sweet, just kind of trying to play it like a singer, if you will. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm in standard tuning with my tele set up normally, how I would normally like to play it. And one of the things I like about standard tuning and wearing the slide on your pinky is you can go between playing slide licks and also playing conventional things, because these three fingers are free. So that can be a lot of fun to do, and again, that's one of the things I like about conventional tuning and just, mixing it up with your fingers. It's fun to do that, to just have access to riffs that you might normally play and then toss the slide in there for color. So it makes it possible to do all these cool things of just moshing up your regular guitar playing with a bit of slide.